The minor site and subcommittee meeting of Monday, July 18th, 2022. It's 7 p.m. Announcement is made that adequate notice of this meeting has been given and it is being conducted in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 at sec of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Nora, would you call the roll?
Mr. Didich.
Here.
Mr. Mealy.
Here.
Ms. Veely.
Here.
Chairman Von Aiken.
Here.
We also have with us our board planner, Mr. Weiser, and our board engineer, Mr. Canjiano.
All right. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this meeting is open to the general public. Are there any members of the general public that have anything to present which is not on our agenda? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public portion and we'll move on to our resolution. That's application number 22:524, SESI. All the board members have an opportunity to review the resolution and presented their concerns? Do we have any concerns? Okay, I'll accept a motion on this resolution.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr.
I
Mealy.
motion to approve resolution for application number 22:524, SESI, 959 Route 46, Block 722, Lot 2, a minor site plan to construct a shed.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, Dadich.
Okay, Nora, please call the vote.
Didich.
Yes.
Mealy.
Yes.
Veely.
Yes.
Von Aiken.
Yes. Okay, moving on to agenda, and our attorney has joined us at this time. We have application number 22:526, Whitecap LP, 799 Edwards Road, Block 767, Lot 12, Zone LIW-2, minor site plan to construct outdoor storage and parking stall. Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please come forward.
Hi, I'm not Steve Kamalakian. He is in parts of other parts of the state. I'm going to use his partner. And I'm here on behalf of Whitecap. The application is just as the chair read it. I think the sooner I get out of the way and let Brad do the presentation, we can respond. We did receive your engineer's report. We received report from the planner also.
Okay, very good. With that in mind, does our planner have any concerns about the completeness or any waivers to report on?
Our report, Mr. Chairman, is dated 6/27/22. There are a number of, items that the applicant submitted as not applicable. There are also a number of items, actually 2 items, where specific waivers have been requested. But given the nature of this particular application, the fact that it's a minor, we have no objections to them. We did confer with the engineer, and they did not object to any of the requests. So I can go through them individually if you like, but they are there on the report.
The report, the waivers would be lines 20 and 21?
The waivers would be 20 and 21, and then the rest are what was submitted as not applicable. We have no objection to any.
Okay. Do any of the board members have concerns about the waivers as proposed? No. Okay. I'll accept the motion to accept the waivers as proposed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a motion to approve the waivers as specified.
Do we have a second?
Second, Dadich.
We'll just do all in favor here. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the waivers are accepted. We'll turn it over to you at this time, sir.
Thank you. I will turn it over to Brad Thompson. Brad, you're a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. Is that
Hang on,
correct?
counsel, let me just swear him in before you qualify.
I thought we didn't swear anybody. Okay. Whatever you want to do.
Sir, please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony I'm about to give will be the truth? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Brad Thompson. I'm with Nigerian Associates. We are at 1 Industrial Way in Eatontown, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Just I guess to keep the record clear, you're a licensed professional engineer?
I am.
Is valid as of tonight?
It is.
And you regularly appear before boards and prepare applications such as this?
I do, and I've appeared with many boards, including this one.
Is that acceptable, Mr. Chairman?
It is for me. Is any objections from the board? All right, seeing none, please continue.
Could you briefly describe what it is that you would like to do on this piece of property, Grant? Is this microphone picking him up? Are we good?
He's got a.
Generally, they pick up the one
There's
that's,
one down there.
yeah,
You can have that.
that'll work.
That's the act.
Thank you.
Our firm was responsible for preparing the plans that you see before you tonight and that have been submitted. What I'm referring to tonight is a renderized version of sheet 2 of that plan. If you'd like, I can mark it as exhibit.
You do mark them?
Yeah, if it's different than what was previously submitted,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
no problem.
I'll mark it as A1.
A1, and what do
A
you,
rendering of the plan entitled Site Improvement Plan for White Cap Parsippany Outdoor Storage.
what was the date of that,
It's March 14th, 2022.
and the sheet number?
Is sheet 2.
Thank you.
So this shows the site as it exists today. We're 799 Edwards Road. That's block 767, lot 12 in Parsippany. The site is currently occupied by Whitecap. A subsidiary of Whitecap is on the sign, but it's a Whitecap company. The property is located in the LIW-2. That's limited industrial wholesale district, and it's bounded by residential uses to the north and to the west, which north is to the right on this page, just for reference. So to the north and west, we have residential uses in the R5 district, which is apartment buildings, and then there's other uses in the same zone to the east and to the south, and there's also an affordable housing district to the south on the left side of the page. Basically, what we're proposing is the area kind of shown in this teal that is to the south of the existing building and sits atop a portion of the existing parking lot. We're proposing a 6,900 square foot outdoor storage space, which will be fenced with a 6-foot tall chain link fence and have a 20-foot wide swing gate to allow outdoor materials to be installed in this area temporarily as kind of like a receiving and drop-off area for larger items that don't fit within the warehouse. Typically, as part of these operations, it includes things like rebar and large oversized lumber and things like that that sit outside. None of the items are hazardous or on the list of I'm sorry, I forget the industrial wholesale, like the industrial waste list that I was mentioned in the engineer's report. So the idea is these items are just difficult to put inside of a building, so they leave them outside and trucks pick them up, and either client or customers can come and pick them up, or they have delivery trucks that will deliver those items to folks. So the main part of this application is we are sitting on top of an existing parking field. 22 stalls are going to be removed of the 43 that exist today. And then, as part of the proposed improvements, the drive aisle here to the west side of the parking field, we're going to add 2 more parking stalls back. So 43 minus 22 plus the 2 gives you a total of 23 parking stalls in the proposed condition. Based on the planner's report and our own inspection, 13 spaces are required, so we meet that. The engineer's report brought up the idea of also having a spot for a manager and a visitor space, which, adding those items to bring it up to 15 required would still comply with 23 spaces proposed. The fence is located around the perimeter of this teal area. The fence, the closest part to the property line is 15.7 feet. The fence, I mentioned, 6 foot in height. The engineering report had mentioned setting the fence back 2 feet from the existing parking stalls to allow for overhang of cars and whatnot. We're okay with doing that. I think that's a good idea. The operations within the area are mostly carried out by trucks. There is the occasional forklift that goes in there to help load and unload, you know, that kind of thing. But mostly the materials sit on the ground or on pallets, things like that. The improvements and just the nature of the temporary placement of these things, plus most of them on pallets, it shouldn't affect stormwater at all. So we anticipate leaving the stormwater kind of as is and let that function. We are not proposing any landscape or signage changes. Like I said, the tenant is currently there, and they don't plan on making any facade changes or signage changes or anything like that.
Is this a fairly hidden site?
It is. I was surprised. I had seen pictures of it, but I actually was out there today, and it's very, very well screened by just the existing vegetation that's out there. So, the lot generally conforms, as was mentioned in the planner's report. We have one pre-existing nonconformity, which is the lot width, which is required to be 200 feet in this zone, and we have 167.02. We are not making any changes to that at this time. All other bulk items in our table on the sheet comply. And that's basically it. We have this outdoor storage space that is kind of integral to the operations of this site. And we're hoping for a positive outcome here from the board.
Can you describe a little bit, just so the board has a feel, what kind of materials, what's going to be on these pallets?
Sure. I mentioned before, it's on some of their other sites, it's like oversized lumber, rebar. It changes depending on different orders from different clients. So it's mostly building construction material. Just that's what they do. It's wholesale building construction and tools. Can't think of the word. Machinery, things like that. So.
All right, and this site was the subject of a number of other actions by the board on previous occasions, and they were all attached as part of the application. Is that correct?
Right. Of the things that we were aware of, we had tried to include as much as we had on the site. The one thing that was mentioned in one of the reports was that we did not include a survey, which our apologies for that, and we can certainly do that should the board like to see that.
Do you have anything else?
I don't. It's kind of a simple application. I thought the comments from the planner and the board professionals were spot on. One of the items had requested just a truck turning radius, and I'm happy to work with the engineer to just provide exactly what he's looking for there. But other than that, we can comply with all the comments.
Okay.
Except that I just do want to note that it's not a conditionally permitted use, I don't think, in the zone. As far as I can tell, in looking at the ordinance, it looked like that section really didn't apply, but I leave it to you, sir.
I'll leave it to the planner on that one.
All right, well, then we will start with the planner. Mr. Weiser?
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, our report is 6/22. We went through the completeness issues. We went through, Mr. Thompson? Sorry. Walked us through the pre-existing nonconformity for the lot width. We understand this is a construction materials operation here.
Correct.
The LIW2 zone permits an accessory use on the same lot when customary and incidental to the principal use on the lot. I would argue that this is customary and incidental to this use. I have in front of me, and if you will give me a minute, I have conditional uses here under section 430-165. And the conditional uses talk about a cannabis establishment. Obviously, that doesn't apply. So I don't see this as a conditional use. If anybody disagrees with me, I'm happy to have the conversation.
Our opinion too.
We do have, so for the principal structure, just for the record, there is a requirement that the minimum gross floor area be 5,000 square feet. Just for the record, what are you at?
Yes, for the record, we're 29,086 square feet, and that is a single-story building.
Okay. We do have a question. There is a requirement, and for the board, this is page 5 of our report under additional regulations pursuant to 430-167 small b storage. All materials and equipment shall be stored in a completely enclosed building or shall be otherwise screened by walls, fences, landscaping as may be determined by the board to be adequate and appropriate. The proposed outdoor storage area will be screened by a 6-foot tall chain link fence along with a 20-foot chain link fence swing gate.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Can I know you had said the site is well screened in its existing condition. I know you said it's somewhat hidden. But can you, and there is existing landscaping, can you walk us through where you feel the screening is such that additional landscaping is not required?
Sure. Really, when you come towards the site on Edwards Road, again, south is to the left here, north to the right. So you're arriving from the east, and as you pull up on the site, it's mostly vegetated in the green area to the south of the site, and really the only viewscape into the site is through the drive aisle. So that's, you pull up, you kind of get a glimpse of the building, you can't even see the whole thing. From there, on the south side, there's dense vegetation. You can kind of see it in the aerial as well. That's behind this exhibit, all towards the south, and then again moving west. And then there's another small view shed, maybe 15 or so feet wide, on the western side of the property where you can see just the one corner of the building. But otherwise, you can't see the building, the parking lot, the area that we're proposing to do this outdoor storage is only visible from the main entrance when you pull into the site. And if you're not going to the site, you will see it for a moment as it passes by. And it's about as shielded as it can get. Adding additional, landscaping to around this area, we feel would just be redundant. Nobody's going to see it.
So that's Edwards to the left of the drawing, right?
Yes, correct.
And from Edwards, you can't see
So
into forgetting about the building, but the proposed storage site?
correct, yes. Traveling east or west, like I said, the only time you will see this is if you're looking down the drive aisle. You will not see it if you're coming from the west heading east. You won't see it.
Does that include the winter time?
Again, the vegetation is such that it's extremely dense out there. I couldn't tell if there was evergreen mixed in there, but it seems that it's going to be vegetated year-round like that.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to pipe in
Yep,
on that
go ahead.
topic. I don't know if you saw the review letter from the township engineer about the stormwater detention basin.
I did, yes.
And that basin backs pretty much right up to the curb line of the fence. You probably have to clear out a good amount of that vegetation to get that basin open and unencumbered by the vegetation. So I would recommend like a row of arborvitae or some kind of evergreen in front of that, because I think most of that probably going to get chopped out and cut out.
Yeah, we're happy to, I thought that was a good memo with the picture, and it shows the basin pretty overgrown. To go in there, have a landscaper go in and kind of clear away and make sure all the structures are working and that kind of thing. But again, the nature of the use and the nature of the site, we want to try and keep as much of that as we can while still making sure the basin functions. Obviously maintained, but that's a big part of the shielding and the screening, like you had mentioned. So
The basin goes right up to the edge of the parking lot. Your contours show it going right up to
yes,
the parking
yeah,
lot.
it does.
So you really got to, take out most of it. There may be a small amount left, but a good amount of that will have to come out.
I understand. I think, most of the vegetation that we're benefiting from is along the edge of the property and along Edwards Road and the Rutgers Apartments over here.
There's another solution, which is, would you mind putting vinyl slats into the chain link fence in order to create privacy? Because that's really what this is about, if I understand correctly, Mr. Weiser.
It's screening,
Screening.
privacy.
Screening is a
Screen-
better
I-
term, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If that's something the board would want, it's something we can entertain. Yes.
okay.
What I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, and I'm beginning to recommend this, for all of these similar installations, is rather than the, typical slats that you might see at a tennis court or something, that
Mhm.
there are, products out there that look like boughs from an evergreen, that I've seen, and if you just Google, what did I Google? Chain link fence inserts, I think they are.
Mhm.
There's a whole bunch of different products out there that really do look like somebody weaved a bough, an evergreen branch through them all, and they last. They seem to last.
Okay.
So that might be a more attractive alternative than your standard
Yeah.
tennis court slats.
I'm not 100% familiar with the product that you're talking about, but I think we understand the goal, which is provide screening that also blends in. There's a couple different
Yeah.
products, and while I can't say we'll use that exact one, I think we can accomplish the goal of having a natural color that basically prevents you seeing
Yeah.
into this.
And I think the engineer's note about needing to get your drainage space cleaned out is an important one as well.
I agree, actually,
Okay.
yeah, we're not pushing back. I said, we can definitely accommodate.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
the answer is yes, we can do that, but we're not so sure it makes so much sense to do it on all four sides. It's really the exterior side,
Mhm.
because it just makes a lot of sense, but we could work with your professionals.
Is there a reason why you feel like, you would want to be able to see in? Is that,
From the building?
Yeah.
That's what my client.
And it would be good for various departments to be able to see, and should there be something stored that shouldn't be stored, I like it better when we can kind of see on some of the sides. So,
okay,
I get a call that, there's 20 record trucks, parked in there. It's good to at least leave some of it so we can kind of,
okay, so
Yeah.
then our recommendation is for screening to be made available on the two exterior facing sides?
It'll be the
Okay.
south and the east side.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, Mr. Weiser, was there anything else?
No, my concern was only the view from the road, so I was not intending to recommend that, all four sides, or frankly, anything more than the one side, be, screened, but if you want to go for the two, you're the boss.
Okay. Mr. Canjiano,
I
anything
agree.
else to add?
No, just on I don't know if I heard your testimony right. The circulation and loading to this thing, are you intending to block the driveway with, loading, customer vehicles there? Or is this sort of like an accessory storage area that it's gonna be moved to the rear and loaded on, vehicles in the rear?
Yeah, so it's kind of an accessory storage area. The rear of the site is kind of, all the pavement is kind of left open to allow for the types of operations you're asking for us to describe. The other thing is, the site's kind of unique where kind of the vehicles move in a counterclockwise rotation, so it's only one way to get back here. And then, through the docks, they're kind of the angular docks, and again, it's kind of a tight site, but it allows for a lot of loading operations that
So
take
just to
place.
be clear, you're not going to be loading customers' vehicles up front by this fence. The material will be brought back to the back of the building and loaded on the customers' vehicles? In the rear of the building?
We can do both.
I'm concerned about blocking the access.
So I think there's a bit of a trade-off where I think for larger, longer, delivery load times, things like that, it should be moved to the back. But it's one of those things, if it's a pallet, you pick it up with a forklift and you put it on a pickup truck. That might happen there, is kind of my understanding of the operation, if that's okay with the board.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Canjiano?
No, that's all I had.
I'll open it up to the other board members, at this time. Any questions? Ms. Veely?
Just one, I was trying to look at the plan, the length by width of the area again? What was
Oh,
it? It was
sure.
like 101,
It's 101.7 feet, and 62.2 feet.
Mhm.
perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
I actually had the same question as Mr. Canjiano about the placement of the front of that fence where your gate is, and if that would obstruct the flow outwards or access for fire vehicles, should any of that be
Yeah.
concerned?
That's a good question. The way this parking lot is actually laid out, it was almost made for this, where you can see we actually put the swings of the gate on this plan for that exact reason. We wanted to make sure fire trucks, emergency vehicles could still maneuver, even if it's a windy day and the gates are blowing wide open. And that is the case here. It's set back far enough. We left kind of one space here to allow for that kind of condition.
And as I read it, this is a 20-foot gate, so each one of those is 10 feet long.
Right.
You're only talking about the vehicle standing out another, how far, what would be the vehicle length that would be pulling up to that area?
Usually like 30 or 40 feet.
Okay.
So,
That would seem to create an obstruction. Is there any issue moving the front of the gate back a little bit?
well, typically the way these work is the vehicle will pull inside of here and
Okay.
then drop off. That's how there are other.
That's a better clarification.
Yeah. I'm sorry. That's
Okay.
and that's part of the reason why it kind of lines up with the drive aisle, and there's
Mhm.
room for trucks to literally pull into this storage space
Okay.
and unload.
Yeah, because I would consider it a safety risk if they were coming out to obstruct the flow.
I see. And like park there while loading kind of deal. Yeah,
Correct,
I
yeah.
understand.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Badich?
So for my understanding, so the vehicles will go in, the drivers or the helpers may be with them. They'll drop off the stuff and they just get out, right? Any given point of time, there are no people in that area other than the drivers and the helpers, right?
That's a good question. Usually not. I mean, the idea, a customer may walk in to make sure that the goods are as described, that kind of thing. But the loading and unloading operations, it's all done by White Cap.
Okay. And the chain link door we talked about, is that automatically opening or there is automation or is
No,
that manually
it's-
somebody would get down and open it?
Yeah, it's a manual gate.
Okay. So driver will have to pull in and then get down and then open it? Or will there be somebody else doing that part?
There's multiple people that work on the site. I mean,
Okay.
The idea is it's a coordinated operation. I've seen how it works at their other facilities. It's generally pretty coordinated. There may be a situation where someone does jump down and open, but it's very, very quick operation.
You're going to have a white cap employee helping with the loading anyway, so somebody will be on.
Yeah, and
the gate.
they're coordinated. They have to make sure that there's folks out there ready to receive it. There's a space to drop things off. So-
Yeah, I'm just thinking more from the obstruction perspective, right? If the vehicle is standing for a longer period, then that may be an issue, yeah.
Understood.
My client, you don't know the question,
Yeah.
but maybe this will answer the board's question
Sure.
too. You have swing gates right now. Would it be possible, instead of putting swing gates in, he was asking whether it would be possible to put a slide gate?
Oh,
And that might eliminate some of the.
That,
issues that you're raising.
yep.
yeah, we could do that. Yes. There's enough room to get a 20-foot slider if we offset it slightly. Yeah.
That would
Oh,
not
yeah,
be a
210,
problem for
that
me.
would work.
Yeah.
We could change that to a slider.
Would you rather us change it?
Yep, that.
That was in my head anyway, but it's your project. so.
It's your
Yeah,
decision now, too.
we'll give you another 10 feet up there to work with.
Okay.
It'll also give you, possibly free up the front corner parking spot that's blocked by the swinging gate.
Yeah, instead of it opening up
Yeah.
out into the parking lot, there's just a slide.
So
Okay.
you don't object to this, this was your suggestion.
All right.
Right, we can make that change, no problem.
Okay. Very good.
One real quick, right? So at any given point of time, trucks drop off and they just get out, right?
Yeah.
They are not parked there for like hours and hours, right?
No.
Besides that operation. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask just one more question?
Go ahead, Ms. Veely.
I just want to confirm, it was 22 spaces will be lost, 2 new for a total of 23.
Correct.
Does this change it now?
Where 15 are required.
We never included that space. It was
Okay.
just kind of a no.
Just wanted to-
Okay.
Yeah, so.
I don't want anybody being this list.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One more question?
Yep. Are you proposing any lighting in the area?
We are not. The existing lighting's to remain. That's one of the comments from the engineer's report was, how do we get around the lighting? Another comment in the report was pulling the fence back. I had mentioned previously about 2 feet, which we can skirt right by the existing light that is out there. So
there'll be sufficient lighting in this area at nighttime?
the idea is it'll be the same lighting that's out there today. I haven't done a lighting study, so I can't say it's, sufficient, but it's what's been there, all along.
Can't let those safety numbers slip, right? Okay. I work in enough warehouses. All right. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Do we have a motion from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Dadich.
I move the motion to approve the application number 22.526, Whitecap LP, 799 Edwards Road, Block 767, Lot 12, Zone LIW2, minor site plan to construct an outdoor storage area and parking stalls.
Okay.
Second, Mealy.
All right. We have a second. Nora, please call the vote.
Mealy,
Yes.
Veely,
Yes.
Von Aiken,
Yes.
Deep. Sorry, I missed you.
Yes.
All right. I believe we have a passing resolution then. Thank you very much for your time. And as we have completed our agenda for this evening,
Can I just ask one question?
Yes.
Can you allow, you're gonna adopt a resolution, so you do it on the previous one. Are we able to waive receipt of the resolution so at least we can start the filing process and the construction process?
well, that is definitely an attorney question.
That's definitely a building department question.
I'm zoning and construction, so I can answer that.
Okay.
Zoning will not issue the zoning permit until the plans are signed by the planning board. However, commercial application, if you're ready to go, you can submit to construction. When you go to the counter, the applicant that's going to the counter, just say, we spoke to Jennifer, the director, we'd like to submit our commercial application. We like to see simultaneous review. Zoning, I just took all my notes. I can issue the permit as soon as Nora signs the plan and the compliance is review, I can issue the zoning permit, but we don't want to hold you up, so you can submit to construction as soon as possible.
Thank you very, very
You're
much.
welcome.
Okay.
Very helpful.
And with that said, without objection, we are adjourned.
So
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Troy Hills Planning Board for Monday, July 18th, 2022 at 7:30 is now called to order. Announcement is made that adequate notice of this meeting has been given, that it is being conducted in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 et sec of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. If you would call the roll, please.
Mayor Barbario,
Here.
Mr. Deep,
Here.
Councilman DiPiero,
Here.
Mr. Mealy,
Here.
Mr. Napolitano,
Here.
Mr. Stanziel,
Here.
Ms. Veely,
Here.
Mr. Von Aiken,
Here.
Chairman Dinsmore.
Here.
We also have with us our board planner, Mr. Weiser, our board engineer, Mr. Canjiano, and our board attorney, Mr. Lagana.
We could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
Okay.
All right, just before I get to that, we've got a couple of small items here. This meeting is open to the general public. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak to this board on anything that is not on our agenda tonight? Hearing and seeing none. We have some resolutions at this point. Do I have any questions or discussions about either of the resolutions? Or is there somebody willing to move them?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
a motion to approve the resolution, application number 22:522, 169 Johnson Road LLC, 169 Johnson Road, Block 200, Lot 8, major soil moving permit in conjunction with approved application for multifamily development.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Von Aiken.
Nora, would you call the vote, please?
Deep,
Yes.
Mealy,
Yes.
Napolitano,
That's you.
Napolitano,
I'm not concerned that one.
I'm sorry?
This is not voting. I wasn't here for that one.
We're doing, you doing the 169 Johnson.
Yes.
Said he was not here for that one, Nora.
I have him as being here. Stanzio,
Yes.
Von Aiken,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. All right, do I hear another motion for application number 22:523?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Dedich?
I move the motion to approve resolution for application number 22:523, Tesla, 350 New Road, Block 767, Lot 29.02, minor site plan with variance for the installation of Tesla-related equipment.
Do I have a second?
Second, Von Aiken.
All right, Nora, if you would call the vote, please.
Barbario,
Yes.
DePiero,
Yes.
Mealy,
Yes.
Stanzio.
No.
That's right, Veely,
Yes.
Von Aiken,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. All right, now before we move on to the rest of the agenda tonight, Mr. Dedich has indicated that he sees a conflict and he would like to recuse himself. So,
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
service. Good night, unless you're gonna sit and watch.
Yep, I'll be there.
Enjoy. All right, so we're calling application number 22:504, Taco Bell, 285 Route 46, Block 767, Lot 3, Spot 01.
Good evening, everyone. John Wichiscala with the law firm of Ingalsino, Webster, Wichiscala, and Taylor. Pleasure to be back before the board this evening. It's good to see everyone. Just a real quick summary. I'm here tonight on behalf of Hazabell of Northeast LLC. The property that is the subject of this application is 285 Route 46, Block 767, Lot 3.01. It's a property that actually has two frontages, one on Route 46 to the front, as well as Edward Meeks Road to the rear. The site is currently developed with a pub, tavern, restaurant that everyone knows was the in crowd for many years. It's been vacant for some time now. This particular property was acquired recently by Shree Developers LLC, whose principal is Dr. Maheda. He's a longtime Parsippany resident and property owner and business owner here in your community. We are before you tonight seeking preliminary and final site plan approval, conditional use approval, soil permit, soil movement permit approval, and a couple of variances to allow for the development of a Taco Bell restaurant with drive-through on the subject property. Fast food restaurants, drive-in restaurants are permitted as a conditional use in the B2 zone district, which is the zone the property is located in. And we do meet all the conditional use standards that allow this to be considered by the planning board as a permitted use. We do have variance relief with respect to exceeding the maximum width of a driveway as well as steep slopes. And we'll speak to those as we go forward. We have submitted applications not only to this board, but to outside agencies. We did have to go to the Highlands Council to get a consistency determination. We went through that process and secured that determination. We also require a DOT highway access permit. Our traffic engineer submitted for that, and actually the permit issued. We're still going through the paperwork with DOT and so forth, but we do have a permit in hand. I have three witnesses I intend to call this evening. Bob Belia, who will be speaking tonight on behalf of Hazabell, and he'll really be speaking to the nature of the business and the operations and things that your professionals identified in their reports they want to hear about, just regarding employees and deliveries and things of that nature. We have our project engineer, James Theon with Bowler Engineering. He's going to go through the site plans and the architectural plans as well. We also have our planner, John McDonough, who'll go over the variances. We do have Doug Poliniak. He is our traffic engineer. If the board wants to hear traffic testimony or has questions as we go through, we can call on him. Although I think his traffic impact statement was submitted, and I think it was reviewed, and I'm not sure if there were any significant comments in that regard, but we'll see where we go at that. So at this time, unless anybody has any questions, I'd like to call Bob Delia forward to testify.
Are there any waivers to be taken care of?
Mr. Chairman, we have a report dated 6/27/22, and if you look at page 4 of that report, there are 2 items that applicant listed as not applicable. We concur that they're not applicable to this application. We also then have 4 items that, where waivers were requested. One is a temporary waiver regarding the Morris County Planning Board. Applicant is asking that they make this paperwork a condition of approval. We do not object to that. And then there are 3 other waiver requests that relate to letters of interpretation from DEP. The applicant is requesting a waiver from these 3 items since it's an already existing site, and the project is to redevelop the existing site into a restaurant with drive-through, as we just heard. We don't object to these requests either. So I think from our perspective, the applicant can be deemed complete. We recommend that the waivers be granted, be accepted, and to move along.
Do I hear a motion granting the waivers as outlined in the planner's report of, what's the date on them?
June 27th.
June 27th. Okay, do I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, Mealy.
All right, Nora, if you could call out the vote, please.
Barbario,
Yes.
DePiero,
Yes.
Neely,
Yes.
Napolitano,
Yes.
Stenzel,
Yes.
Gilly,
Yes.
Von Aiken,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. All right,
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So this time I'd like to call Bob Delia forward. Take a seat here. Good evening.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Robert Delia. My address is 9 White Oak Drive, California, New Jersey.
Can you please spell your last name?
Delia.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was
Nora, are
your
you
first
picking that
name?
up, by the way?
No, he has to speak into the mic a little closer. I'm sorry, repeat your name
Shall I
for me.
repeat that?
Repeat your name.
Robert Delia, Delia.
Okay.
So, Mr. Delia, what is your involvement with respect to this application?
I do all the real estate for this particular Taco Bell franchisee, Haza Bell. They are a 2,000 unit operator nationally, and approximately 90 Taco Bells in the Northeast, about 50 of which are in New Jersey. So I handle all of their real estate for them, finding the sites, presenting, making the deals, and then taking them through approval. I've been affiliated with Taco Bell in various capacities of real estate for the last 30 years.
And
Having at one point worked for Taco Bell Corporate.
And Mr. Delia, you're familiar, we're gonna have our engineer, in a short while get up and present the plans, but can you just provide the board with an overview of, the nature of the business and the operations? I know everyone's familiar with Taco Bell, but, what we would expect, if this board were inclined to grant approval tonight, to this application, business operations, things of that nature.
Sure. So this site, and I'll leave the specifics to the engineer, but this site's about an acre. From our perspective, that's great because we didn't have to compromise on any of the layout. So all of the drive-through lanes, drive-through, drive lane, bypass lane, adequate parking. And again, I'll let the professionals testify specifically on those.
I need you to speak into the mic. Is it
Sorry.
possible you could pull down your mask while you testify?
Sure, I've got a bit of a cold, so probably nobody should use that mic after that. They can use the,
Speak louder.
yeah, is that okay? Sorry about that. So, on this particular location, as most of Taco Bell's, the store, we would expect about 20 to 25 employees, 5 to 7 on a typical shift. They utilize a lot of part-time. Hours of operation are 7 a.m. to midnight. The drive-through lane stays open until 2 a.m.
Trash pickup is typically about two per week in off hours, usually in the AM. We do have the ability to restrict those to hours if necessary. All of our deliveries come from one supplier, McLean, and there's 2 to 3 per week. So it's generally the same driver every week on a route. He has his restaurants in order that where he delivers. So he gets to know these sites quite well. Those deliveries will always occur in non-peak hours. The restaurant, he knows not to go there, even to go there during lunch hour, for example, or dinner rush hour.
And Bob, typical unloading time when the,
20 minutes to 30 minutes. That is a 3-compartment truck. It's frozen, dry, and refrigerated. So again, all deliveries come from one supplier. Okay. Again, I spoke, this drive-through lane is 9 cars stacked, which is excellent. We generally have about a 7 to 8 standard. So, and also there's a bypass lane. The need for drive-through has been, has continued to increase, particularly after COVID. But frankly, it was increasing before that. Our drive-throughs have increased, and the inside seating has generally decreased. In this restaurant, we're proposing 50 seats inside and 10 outside. There's a covered seating area outside. Parking corporate standard is about 25. Here we're proposing 36. I talked about the drive-through stack. This building height is actually lowered to comply with your ordinance. It's 20 feet high. We have an existing store in town that I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's been there for probably 25 years, approximately 2.35 miles to the west, on the westbound side of 46. So separated by Route 80, a significant amount of difference, also differences in direction of travel. So we expect this restaurant to pull quite a bit right from that immediate area, Rutgers Village Apartments and such. Also 2 means of access here, which again is a benefit, makes ingress, egress very easy.
thank you. I have nothing further.
I'm here if anybody has any additional questions regarding operations.
Are there members of the board that have questions on this witness and this testimony at this time? No, hearing and seeing none. No, Stuart, our planner.
I think the one operational question that I have is, we have a requirement in town that no sign shall be artificially illuminated after 11 PM or before 7 AM unless the premises are occupied and attended. In terms of your operations, I heard just now that the drive-through is open until 2. What time do you anticipate the sign going off?
Well, it would probably go off at 2 when the store ceases operations.
But the store will then be, using the words of the ordinance, occupied and attended at that time?
Until that time, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. They close the drive-through lane, the restaurant, the dining room early, keep the drive-through open, and much of the cleaning and preparation and such is done during those last couple of hours.
Gotcha.
All right, any members of the board or any other professionals that have any questions at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Are there any members of the public who have questions on this witness on this testimony at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor?
Thank you, Chairman. At this time, I'd like to call James Theon.
Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
Name and address for the record, please. Please spell your last.
sure. James Theon, last name is T-H-A-O-N. I work for Bowler, which is located at 2430 Highway 34, Manasquan, New Jersey.
Mr. Theon, can you please provide the board with a brief summary of your educational and professional background and licenses you hold?
Sure. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My license is in good standing. I received my Bachelor's of Science from the New Jersey Institute of Technology and a minor in civil engineering, bachelor's in civil engineering, minor in environmental engineering, excuse me. I've designed sites, numerous sites in nature to the one that we're reviewing here tonight. And I'm the branch manager of our Manasquan, New Jersey office. where I oversee a number of staff, including ones that did the design on this directly.
Anybody have any further questions on this qualifications?
So, Mr. Fan, I'll ask you to, your office obviously prepared the plans. Looks like you're grabbing your bag, so I'm just going to turn the floor over to you to present the application. And whatever exhibit we're putting up first, and presuming it's not part of our application submittal, I'd ask that you mark it as Exhibit A1 with today's date and describe it. And it looks like you're putting up an existing aerial, so.
Yes, that's correct. So the first exhibit I'm presenting is an aerial exhibit prepared by Bowler Engineering dated July 15th, 2022. For the benefit of the board, north is oriented to the top of the page. The site is shown in the center of the page with a yellow outbound around it. So the property we're looking at tonight is known as 285 Route 46, specifically Block 767, Lot 3.1. Comprises an area of 1.301 acres. Just to further acclimate you to the exact location of the site, to the north of the property is Route 46. To the east of the site, there's a fairly new Mavis Discount Tire, as well as a landscape supply store. Immediately south of us is Edwards Road with Penske Truck Rental beyond, and then west of us is a retail shopping strip as well. Important facet of the site and the existing conditions you'll notice that we'll talk about when we show you the proposed plan this evening is you'll see that the current limit of the property line essentially follows the center line of Edwards Road, which is a bit atypical, meaning the cartway of Edwards Road currently goes through the actual site itself. So something we look to mitigate in our design. The site is occupied, if we zoom in on what's within those boundaries of the existing site, by the in-road, or rather, sorry, the in-crowd pub, which is a 1,967 square foot building. It is currently vacant. So just some facets of the design that we look to mitigate. Just in general, the site is in a little bit of disrepair, I think it's fair to say. If you look at some of the pavements out there that are cracking, faded striping out there. One of the things, if we start in how you enter the site, there's a right in, right out driveway off of Route 46, but it's not very controlled, and it wouldn't follow today's DOT standards. On the western side, where I'm pointing to, there's a large, essentially 50-foot wide ingress driveway, which is quite atypical, and just east of that is a 25-foot wide egress driveway. Again, those sizes aren't very desirable, and they're atypical for DOT standards today. In addition to that, if this site were to be designed today, there would be some existing variances rather, with respect to its location. The building's a bit too close to Route 46. It's at 27.8 feet, whereas your current ordinance requires 50. And it's also too close to the side yard as it relates to where some accessory structures on there. So just in summary, those are some of the items that we were looking to mitigate as part of our proposed design that we have for you tonight. Last thing I'll just say is some of the vegetation out there is a bit overgrown. There's about 35.7% impervious coverage today. And so we looked to clean that up a bit. So the next exhibit that I will mark as Exhibit A2 with today's date is a colorized rendering of the site plan that was submitted as part of this application package.
What date do you have on that?
The exhibit itself is dated July 15th, 2022, also prepared by Bowler. And we, again, it's an exact replication with landscaping superimposed, so you can get an idea of what it would look like from an aerial view from above. So the star of the show that we're looking at tonight is located in the center of the page, shown in yellow. It's a proposed Taco Bell restaurant that's 2,500 square feet. And just briefly, I should back up for a second. North is still to the top of the page, as it was on that aerial exhibit, with Route 46 on the top. As I mentioned before, in the existing conditions, one of the items that we looked to mitigate was that atypical location of the property line. So we're proposing a 3,445 square foot dedication in favor of the township to provide essentially a more typical location of the property, so it's not within the cartway of the township road. The Taco Bell restaurant itself is, like I said, 2,501 square feet with 50 indoor seats and 10 outdoor seats. The building complies with setbacks building coverage and lot coverage. And the impervious coverage is actually permitted to be up to 90%, whereas we're only at 48.4 with this proposal. So certainly not trying to develop more than we really need to for the operation to work efficiently. There is one variance that we do need to discuss with the board as it relates to maximum disturbance of critical slopes. The board actually has in its purview, based on your ordinance, the ability to waive this requirement. There are 2 areas on site that are slightly over the threshold for maximum disturbance based on a percentage. Approximately in the southwest corner and southeast corner where I'm pointing, there's some steeper areas there, but the total of those areas is less than 1,000 square feet cumulative, and as such, the board has the right to actually waive that variance from consideration. And I would note, it's not noted in the planner's report, probably because it's less than that threshold, but we wanted to just make you aware of it. To go on a brief tour of the site, we'll first start off on the access on Route 46. So it's a right-in and right-out driveway. Has a 15-foot wide egress and a 15-foot wide ingress and a 12-foot wide egress that complies with DOT standards as it relates to its location and size. Then as you were to enter into the site, you're greeted by a 24-foot wide drive aisle, which complies with your township code. As you continue page south further, you have the ability to then access our drive-through lane, which has both a drive-through entrance as well as a bypass area. The drive-through lane and bypass lane are 11.5-foot wide each. Then further south of that, there's a 30-foot wide full movement driveway off of Edwards Road. We are requesting a variance for consideration from the board. Your ordinance allows for a maximum size of that drive aisle, or driveway I should say, of 24 feet, but we're proposing 30. 30 is a very typical size for a commercial site, and it also nicely accommodates access for larger vehicles. A WB50 size or commensurate truck does access this facility. We want to provide adequate means for them to get in and out of the site without having to cross any of the double yellow lines along Edwards Road. So we are asking that for consideration of this board. Along that drive aisle that's on the west of the building is a total of 36 proposed parking spaces at 9-foot by 18-foot wide. They are also compliant with code and the amount of spaces. This site does not require a dedicated loading zone based on your ordinance. It's under 3,000 square feet, and a loading zone is not provided, nor is it typical for these sort of sites, just given the operation and the size of the site that's provided. Like I did mention, a loading truck is similar in size to a WB50. It's actually a tad smaller. We did model the exact truck as part of our package that we sent to you. You have the ability to access off of Route 46 and Edwards Road based on the proposed geometry. It's very important to note in the police and fire officials' letters, they both requested potentially eliminating the island, the concrete island that's on the entrance off of Route 46. And I just wanted to provide a clarification as to why we proposed an island there. One clarification is that it's a mountable island. The concern with both of the fire and police officials was to make sure a fire truck or a police vehicle can get into the site. And I think there was a misunderstanding that it is a mountable island. So you can in fact go over that if you needed to. But if you look at our WB50, which is a very large truck, typically larger than a fire truck, it just clips the island, which is very typical on a mountable island. So we feel it's adequate. And we don't want to stripe it. We want to keep it as a mountable island because it's a visual cue for drivers on where their entrance and exit points are. And because we typically see striping will degrade over time, which then eliminates that visual cue for the drivers. From there, just wanted to point out, a trash truck has the ability to enter the trash enclosure area, which I'm pointing to now in the southwestern area of the site. Utilities for the site are available in both Edwards Road and Route 46. That includes water, sewer, electric, gas, telecommunications. We do have email from John Leworka, the superintendent of your Public Works Department, confirming that water is available for the site. We do not increase water by more than 1,500 gallons per day. The site is a major development pursuant to DEP criteria, and as such, we have to comply and do comply with water quality, quantity, and recharge standards. And we do have a Highlands consistency determination with no comments as it relates to stormwater design. As you can see, there's quite a bit of green still remaining on this plan. And as such, we really are trying to provide a very tasteful design and be cognizant of the location of lights in the drive-through, et cetera. And so we provided shade trees, evergreens, deciduous shrub, perennials, ornamentals, just a nice mix of landscaping out there so it's an attractive view of the site. And it does comply, the landscaping design that is, with your township standards. Lighting for the site is proposed via freestanding LED lights at 25 feet high, as well as some wall-mounted lights that are located on the building. And again, the lighting design also complies with township standards. There's a theme here. Signage also complies with township standards. And so to just show the board the signs and their locations, I'll just bring up my last two exhibits, which are renderings that were submitted as part of the application package. As such, do you want me to mark those?
I see color on them. Did we submit them with color?
These are submitted, these are as is.
If they've been previously submitted, then no.
Understood. So in that case, I'm referring to the architectural exterior elevations A4.0 prepared by Glisco Architects, dated March 2021. The elevation that we're looking at is what they call the right side elevation, or it's the main entrance facade of the building. So that would be where the double row of parking is. Actually, I'll just quickly show you. So that would be looking from the west towards the east where I'm pointing. And what we're proposing there is a 9.94 square foot sign above the main entrance, just to let you know you've gotten to your location. And it's specifically located there because that's the direction of travel for Route 46, so we think it's going to have the best visibility. Then referring to the exterior elevations, A4.1, also prepared by Glisco Architects, dated March 2021, referring to the front elevation, which is if you were standing on Route 46 looking into the site. On the tower, we have proposed a 19.14 square foot sign, which complies with code requirements. Just briefly on the elevations, as was mentioned by Mr. Delia, the elevation of the site is 20 feet, the elevation of the building is 20 feet, which complies with code, and we believe it's a tasteful design on the exterior elevations. Referring back to Exhibit A2, I'll just briefly show you the location of the monument sign where I'm pointing to at the entrance of Route 46. It's a 36 square foot monument sign, whereas 50 square feet is permitted. It's 6 feet high, 6 foot is permitted, and it's set back 15 feet. 15 feet is what's required by code. That concludes my direct testimony.
And Mr. Pan, did you have a chance to go over Mr. Cangiano's review letter of July 8th, 2022?
Yes, I did.
And I'm actually going to go backwards on this, on page, well, sort of backwards. Page 3, there are 8 stormwater management comments. Those comments are all acceptable. Number of things requiring some revisions and some technical details. Is that correct?
That's correct. We'd be happy to work with Mr. Cangiano's office.
That works.
And just turning, and I'm going to just turn back to site plans in general, which is the start on page 2. I mentioned earlier we have secured DOT access permit, correct?
Correct.
There's a question regarding a 24-inch storm pipe. That's actually a DOT pipe that traverses this property, is that correct?
That is correct.
And there were comments, comment 3 pertains to compliance with EV requirements, electric vehicle parking requirements, and will comply with township code in that regard, is that right?
Yes.
We already spoke to deliveries and staffing, which are 4 and 5. You already spoke to 6 about water utilities at 7. There's a comment to repair a number 8 trench repair beneath the pavement. Should be DGA, that's acceptable, correct?
Yes.
Outdoor seating arrangement, is that depicted or will that be depicted?
That will be depicted on the revised drawing submitted to the town.
And I'm just going to go to traffic and parking, and the first 3 comments really just as pertain to the traffic report. There are comments 4 and 5. Could you address those?
Sure. So comment 4, had a successful conversation
page
with
3.
Mr. Cangiano's office. Essentially, we want to keep the layout as is. The concern in that, raising that comment was if Taco Bell employees were to use a cart to push out garbage or trash, the request was to provide a depressed curb adjacent to the trash enclosure location. However, it's not typical for trash enclosures to be pushed out from the Taco Bell. They usually just come out in bags. They come out in off-peak hours, so candidly what they do is they just walk out the entrance door, they walk across the parking area, and they throw the trash away. So had a conversation with Mr. Holloway from Mr. Cangiano's office to keep the layout.
Yeah,
the same.
I would still, if there's, we can talk about it offline or on the compliance review, but I would still like to see, or we can, extending that sidewalk out to the bullnose of the curb there, right there, yeah. And, I still think a express curb would be helpful, because sometimes the hand part does come out, and I don't see a judgment to it, but we can discuss that if you have.
Sure, yeah, that's no problem.
And then the other one on the heavy-duty pavement, I think you know my concern there. With the porous pavement, it's a different mix. It's very appropriate on this type of site. It's very appropriate in the parking stalls. But I'm just concerned about the area in front of the trash enclosure. And then also, I didn't bring up in the letter, but also all the right-hand or left-hand turn movements as you enter the drive-through lane. There's going to be a lot of turning movements. I'm just worried about the porous pavement. And again, it doesn't have to be discussed or finalized tonight, but my thought would be investigate if you could rearrange the location of your porous pavement to extend that heavy-duty pavement section to that area of the truck turning movement into the trash enclosure, and ideally just up to the drive-through lane as well.
Sure, we'll work with your office on the location of those porous pavements.
And then just going back to the DOT, is there an easement for DOT maintenance of that storm pipe?
No, there's not, and they didn't request one.
I would recommend, just for your own use, to have an easement added to the plan so that there's no issue for future maintenance.
I don't think we have any issue making note of that on the plans. Candidly, DOT didn't request it, require it, and trying to go through the right-of-way group at DOT in that regard can be a challenge, but I think we can certainly acknowledge it on the plans if that's acceptable to the board. And
Understood. Dealing with the DOT can be a very time-consuming and difficult process.
Right.
All right, so you're basically indicating that if we make as a condition of approval on this, that you work with our township professionals to meet all of the questions that are being asked here, that you would be
Correct.
satisfied with that. All right,
Yes, Chairman.
just to get that on the
Yep.
on the record. So I guess Mr. Cangiano stepped into the middle of a presentation here.
No, that's fine. It's perfect. That's why we went through the report. But yeah, I think we're talking about just working on items 4 and 5 on page 3 under traffic and parking section, as well as satisfaction of the stormwater management comments and the DGA, as I referenced, the items that we have referenced.
And the landscaping
And landscaping.
Absolutely.
Their comments.
things like that, okay? Do you have further are you moving along, or should we be doing questions right now?
I think it's good for questions. And Mr. Weiser, I think yours were mostly advisory. I don't think you had any additional engineering type comments.
We try to stay
Yeah.
away from the engineering. That's why frankly, we didn't pick up the steep slope. We
Yep.
interpreted that as engineering. In terms of the one, I guess, outstanding issue, not outstanding issue, the issue of the variance for the driveway width, we understand why
We have Mr. McDonough is here
Mr.
as well.
McDonough is here, and frankly, I don't understand why there would be a maximum on a driveway width anyway.
Right.
So, I think we're fine.
All right, I guess time for questions from the board. I think Ms. Veely was indicating that she had some questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, when you were discussing the signs, I'm the zoning officer, so as soon as you say signs, my red flag goes up. Because what'll happen is we'll approve this application, you'll come to get a zoning permit, and I'll deny all the signs. So I don't want to do that. So could we go back over the signs? Because actually, the sign ordinance states that all signs shall be front-facing. So usually in an application like this, unless that wall sign is going on that front wall that's facing Route 46, which it didn't look like on your plan, it looked like they were on the side, those would be variances. So each sign that you're putting on the structure that is not front-facing to either Route 46 or to Edwards Road, those would be variances. The ordinance also states that you're only permitted one. So if you're doing multiple wall signs, get the variance for that too. Get the variances for the ones that are front-facing. And the maximum signs that are allowed total area is 150. I didn't do that calculation. I don't think you're over that.
We're not.
But I'm concerned about the front area, because you're probably putting them on the sides, because that just makes the most sense as they're pulling in. So, and you'd want to get the variance for the more than one. And I didn't look yet for the freestanding, but I wanted to hit those two just so that you got the variances for that. So when we go forward, we can issue permits, sign permits down the road.
Sure, understood. And you're certainly the expert as the zoning officer. So candidly, what I'll just share is that our read of the ordinance is it allows for one sign per street frontage, and we do front on 2 streets. So therefore, we propose 2 signs.
That's all you're proposing is the 2 wall?
Right, correct, 2 wall signs. And our read of what is characterized as the front facade, it doesn't necessarily specify street facing, it just says the front of the building. And so our front of the building that we propose, one of the wall signs is where I'm pointing to on the western side of the building, because that is really where people know to enter the building. That's what they would look at as the front, as well as the sign on Route 46. And I could hear Mr. Wichita.
That being said, Mr. McDonough is going to address that shortly.
We would, in zoning, we would not interpret it that way, only because I've been doing it 30 years, and I have to be consistent.
Understood.
So, and I agree with you with the 2 fronts. I didn't know when you did it looked like there was a 3rd wall sign, so I wasn't sure. Because like if you're doing any kind of signage on the front door that's more than the hours and you want to put in a name, you want to add that as a 3rd sign. So we always recommend, and we're consistent, and front facing is always the highway. So to me, that's easy variances. We'd want you to get those so that down the road we wouldn't deny them.
Understood, so I will defer to Mr. McDonough, who will provide testimony on that.
Okay, thank you.
So just to be clear, Jennifer, you believe that in your interpretation, the front-facing wall signs require a separate variance?
Correct.
Because you interpret it as the zoning officer to be forward-facing to the main access, to the main roads?
Yes.
And then the number of wall signs, do we confirm that would also?
I would agree with it being fronting on 2 streets. If there were only 2, that would not be a variance then if you're only proposing 2. I would agree with that.
And I can confirm for the record, we are only proposing 2 wall signs.
Okay. And we're adding the wall signs facing, the west, correct? Mr. Chairman, also the, steep slopes variance, the board has to make a determination of whether or not they want to grant that waiver or actually request, or it be a variance that the applicant has to provide some testimony. At least there was some testimony in terms of generalities, if you want to.
Mr. McDonough will cover it, just because he's going to be speaking to variances, so maybe if you want to hold off and wait for whether it's a waiver or variance.
Okay.
Defer.
There was just some, I think Mr. Thean presented some engineering testimony with regard to it being there, but not any justification as to why. Maybe you want to give a little bit more detail into why you believe it's an insignificant or de minimis exception that can be granted as a waiver.
Sure. So the location of those critical slopes as defined by the township ordinance is at the southwestern and southeastern areas of the site. There are basically some undulations in the landscaped areas out there. Probably wouldn't even really notice them because there's some high vegetation there. So I think it's just a matter of being unmaintained over time that's just created that, and some erosion that's happened in those locations. They're very, very small. So we indicated the 3 sizes are 411 square feet, 166 square feet, and 166 square feet within the 0.3% parameters that the township ordinance defines. So they're very, very small areas that, again, if you went out there today, you probably wouldn't even notice them because they're covered up with grass and overgrown vegetation. So we filled those. Really, in actuality, we didn't need to per se, but we wanted to because we've graded out those areas and made a nice, smooth, landscaped area, added sod and seeded lawn and perennials and shrubs, so it'll look aesthetically nicer and more pleasing. So for those reasons, we're requesting the variance for consideration.
Or waiver.
Or waiver.
All right, we'll include that in the discussion, and Mr. McDonough will give us the planning reasons for saying yes or no.
We hope.
We hope, yes. Any other members of the board? Yes, Mr. Van Auken.
So I didn't hear much in the way of the testimony for the water drainage. I mean, I did look into the plans. It looks as if all of your drainage is moving into the bio basin in the northeast corner there. Is that correct? Or is there any drainage leaving the site?
So I'll describe the drainage for you briefly. So there is a bioretention basin proposed in the northeastern corner of the site. That picks up a portion of the drainage for the site. So the DEP promulgated new regulations in 2021, which created maximum thresholds for certain BMPs, or best management practices. A bioretention basin is one of those best management practices. So a portion of the site from the drive-through discharges directly into the bioretention system and is then tributary to the south of the page near Edwards Road. On the western side of the site, where I'm pointing to with my finger in these lighter hatching, as we call it, that's a porous pavement area that Mr. Canjiano was referring to earlier. That porous pavement area treats stormwater flow as it goes over the porous media and through the ground, treating it for water quality. And underneath that area, which you wouldn't even see, is a large stone bed, which treats it further for quantity and recharge. Those areas are then tributary as well to the southeastern corner of the page, which is the existing drainage pattern of the site, where everything is tributary then to Edwards Road.
Okay. And so just connecting that to the steep slopes, it seems as if the steep slopes aren't really contributing to the drainage issues, and removing those wouldn't create any drainage problems for Edwards Road.
Correct. No negative impact from removing those.
Okay.
Would it actually improve drainage? Or is it just a kind of a wash?
I would characterize it as a wash.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor or Mr. Mealy, no? Any questions?
No. Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Napolitano?
Yes, thank you. Would you say that this site, when completed, would have more green space than before?
No, it would not. It would
Okay.
actually, they were increasing impervious coverage.
Okay. Top left on the entrance, is that a tree right by the entrance?
Yes, it is.
Will that obstruct the views to the entrance?
No, it's out of the line of sight, and
Okay.
our owners and maintenance manual requires it to be trimmed
Okay.
at 7 feet, which is above the driver's eye line.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I don't know many fast food restaurants that have two separate entrances like this. So, all right, you have, I guess, like 10 cars in your model there, or the description there. Let's say there's 15, and they're wrapped around heading north here. And now you have 3 or 4 cars entering from Edwards Road. How do they get in the drive-through line? They got to go all the way around, or are they going to wait there and cut in? Like, how's that going to work?
So it's a really great benefit to this site that we have a bypass lane.
So they have to use the bypass lane?
They would use the bypass lane, and they can circulate around
Okay.
the site and stack.
Okay. Because otherwise, you're going to have backing up all the way out back into Edwards Road and stuff, so, okay.
I'm thinking of Wendy's in East Hanover.
Does that have 2 entrances there? It does?
That's,
Well, it stacks.
Okay. All right, so they're going to know when they pull in, if they can't get in there, drive through around. Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
any other members, any other professionals have any questions on this testimony? Are there any members?
I have one.
Oh, you have one.
Currently on site, there's some other operations going on in terms of stacked logging and so on. Will all that be removed?
Yes.
Cleaned up, and there'll be no other operations occurring on site other than the proposed use, which is the fast food restaurant?
Correct.
Thank you, that's all.
Can I add to that, though?
Sure.
How quickly will be that? Because we were there today, and the giant tree, like the pictures there, It's 11 feet high. We didn't want to call out anybody to come out immediately, but it's very unsafe.
We'll speak to ownership about that, Jen,
Okay,
for
yeah.
sure.
I have pictures I
Ownership
could
is hearing it
show
right
you
now too, by the way,
at
so,
the
yeah.
end.
Yep.
We have some concerns.
Yep, now we'll address that and how quickly, well, good news.
Quickly.
We have DOT permit and, in hand. I think there's still some cleanup you have to do with that, but, I do know that, very motivated to get going with this project if approved, but that condition we'll address accordingly.
Shouldn't it have ever been there?
Not a permitted use.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good. Any other questions? All right, are there members of the public who have any questions on this testimony at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor?
Mr. McDonough?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is John McDonough. It's spelled MC, capital DONOUGH. Did you say address too?
Sure.
301 Gibraltar Drive, over in Parsippany, New Jersey.
Chairman, would you like me to have Mr. McDonough go through his qualifications?
Is anybody here
Who is it? I don't know.
unaware of Mr. McDonough's?
We went to high school together.
Do you still have a
Same here.
license? Is your license still in good standing as professional?
Yes, and not national as well, yes.
All right, I suppose everybody's willing to accept his credentials as an
Yes, sir.
expert in this field as a
Thank you, Mr.
planner.
Chairman.
John, you're familiar with the relief, as well as the additional signage relief, that's requested. I just ask you to provide first.
Sure. So we're looking at, I think, a pretty straightforward application here. I think I can be relatively brief. We're in the B2 zone, which is your highway commercial zone. This is a highway commercial use. We know Route 46 is a service corridor. There's going to be a service use that will naturally marry up very well with both the shape of the site, the configuration of the layout, and the surrounding land use context along Route 46. So importantly, your B2 zone is a zone that allows a lot of things that could happen here. This particular use is a permitted conditional use. You've got 11 criteria that the applicant hits every single one of them. So no relief needed for a fast food restaurant with a drive-through on this particular site. Importantly here, we also have 3 pages of conformance with your zoning requirements as listed in Mr. Weiser's report as well. So substantial conformance with both the zone plan and the zone intent here, all the way from the use down to some of the finer design details as well. The applicant is asking the board to move on 2 variances. A third one was just identified this evening with respect to signage. But the first variance that the applicant is seeking is for the width of the driveway, which I think has already pretty well been vetted. The minimum is met here. The maximum is what the applicant is seeking relief for in the interest of public safety and safe circulation through the site to accommodate, I'll say, contemporary-sized vehicles through the site. Second form of relief pertains to those steep slopes around the perimeter, less than 1,000 square feet. And whenever we look at the application or any application in the context of a variance, and I do believe that your steep slope relief is actually steep slope, is a variance. It's in section 430 of your code as opposed to 225, which is where you have your design standards. So whenever we look at I'll call it the flexible C balancing test, and we look at the benefits of the application as a whole, substantially outweighing the detriments, I think this all ties together in terms of granting that steep slope relief here. Importantly, on the public benefit side, we've got numerous benefits here, including repurposing and revitalizing an older site here in the community. That building has been there since 1948. Honestly, I don't know if it was branded as the in-crowd back there in 1948, but I think it's safe to say 70 years, 80 years later, that brand, that use has served its lifespan on this particular piece of property. It's time for a fresh image. It's exactly what pulling in this name brand is going to do here. Clearly, that site is not designed in accordance with contemporary planning principles. We've got excessive pavement there now, we've got lack of landscaping, and we've got a building that is way too close to the road based on your zoning requirements. So we're going to come in here with a use that will certainly have substantial greenery around the perimeter of the property. You heard through James's testimony that we're looking at approximately half of what could be developed here from an impervious coverage standpoint. So certainly much better in terms of the overall environmental quality of the site than that which could be. And again, a wide variety of uses could go here. For example, an auto dealership could go here. We've got Paul Miller right down the street. I work for him. He's always looking for land. That could go here. Auto repair could go here as well. Again, we think providing this service use along the corridor will certainly promote the public interest. The brand is always over on the other side of town, on the other side of the highway, so we think it makes good planning sense to provide this popular name brand on this side of town as well. So I think there's good balance here. That said, we're also going to promote positive aesthetics with a fresh image. It's going to improve not only the image and identity of the site, but the community at large as progressive and a place where the name brands want to invest. We're going to promote fundamental planning goals of efficient land use here, variety of land uses in appropriate locations, economic development, stable rateable base. These are things we hear over and over in the master plan, in the 2020 master plan. We're going to get job generation here, including first-time jobs that will be targeted at local youth as well. We see that as a good thing. All of this ties back to the land use law, especially purposes A, G, I, and M. And in that regard, we think the positive criteria are substantially met here. With respect to the relief, we counterbalance that with whether this will have any impact of a substantially adverse nature. Looking at the surrounding uses, they're all commercial. Those steep slope impacts, they're environmental controls. We're looking at very minimal impact here from an environmental standpoint, and I think James's design has had put great thought and care into mitigating impacts related to stormwater and other aspects with respect to that steep slope disturbance. And again, as I said, no impacts associated with that additional pavement associated with the driveway width, again, well below what could be here. And then finally, with respect to the signs, having signs on other than the front-facing facade is consistent with the neighborhood pattern as well. We look right down the street where we've got Paul Miller. I've testified there as well for signs on not only the front, but the sides as well. And we do have a supermarket just a few lots down as well, which also has signage not only on the front, but on the sides as well. So this is not going to be anything that is going to look like it's over-branding here. It's not going to be excessive. It's going to successfully integrate with the building itself. It will provide for what we always look for with the name brands, brand familiarity. It meets customer expectations. So when someone drives here, they're going to say that's what a Taco Bell looks like. So it won't look different. That said, we think for all of the reasons that you have in terms of the operational testimony and in terms of the engineering testimony, this is a really good fit for this site. It's not often I get to testify for only 2 variances, so I'll take it every now and then. Certainly the statutory criteria are met here, and I believe that approval is certainly warranted. That, I'll pause on the record.
I just have one thing, long experience here. I always thought that under 1,000 square feet of critical slope disturbance was a waiver because the requirements of the proofs would be a little less than the waiver. And I just want to clarify it for my own intellectual curiosity as to, you're saying it's a variance?
I think the language in the ordinance actually says that the board can waive, or the board has the ability to waive, which is, in my view, is actually somewhat different than a design exception. And it's in section 430, which is your zoning ordinance, as opposed to section 225, which is your site plan and subdivision ordinance.
Okay.
So it's probably splitting hairs at this point. This is such a small number, but I would say it's a variance.
Okay. I accept your knowledge. Mr. Bonak.
Yeah, either way, it won't be there when this is done, right? So it's not something that we need to worry about in perpetuity for your paperwork or anything like that, right?
Right.
Okay.
No, this is Intellectual curiosity on my part.
Yeah.
Right. Are there members of the board that have any questions on this testimony at this time? Mr.
Chairman.
Neely?
Mr. McDonough, there was testimony earlier about the portion, the southernmost property line impinging on Edwards Road.
Yes.
Is that something that would be dedicated to the township? I'd like some clarification on that.
James, why don't you just clarify the right of way?
Yes, that area will be dedicated. It's 3,445 square feet,
Point it out, so-
and it's located, basically I'll circle the area, my finger here, it's that area of the right
Does
of
it go
way.
to the center line of Edwards, or does it go across?
Currently, it goes essentially to the center line of Edwards, and it'll be going page north, closer into the site will be where the new property boundary is.
Would that dedication be a precondition of any approval of this application? Is
I
there some
don't think it's a
legality there?
precondition, but it would be a condition of approval, and we would submit the right-of-way dedication document, just like we would do resolution compliance. We would need to revise the plans to address stormwater management, et cetera. And we would also submit to your board attorney, and I guess the town attorney, a township form of dedication.
Okay, thank you.
That usually goes to the council then for formal approval and acceptance and so forth.
And Mr. Wichiscala just asked me to acknowledge the fact that we have submitted an application for soil moving permit, and we will comply with the requirements of that permit in front of town council.
Is that large enough that we need to submit that to the council?
I don't know, we noticed for it and we submitted it as part of this application, I don't know, does it?
Yes, it's a major soil moving permit.
All right, so we have to find that we think it's appropriate and ask the council to consider it.
Yes, correct. It's also important to note, your township engineer did write a letter with no objections to granting the major soil moving permit for this application.
Okay. Any other questions by members of the board on this? Mr.
Just had a comment
Canjiano?
for you, Mr. Chairman, on regard to the critical slopes. We felt it was de minimis, these were existing disturbed areas, that's number one, but number two, it says in the ordinance that they got the code here, that the board may waive the disturbance in this, if it's small and isolated, non-continuous pockets of slope. So it does say waive, so whichever the board.
I know, but I understand the fine splitting of hairs that Mr. McDonough just made on why it might be a variance.
Correct.
So, just
thought I'd add that.
Yes, absolutely. Any
That was
other members of the board or professionals that, Mr. Weiser, you
I have nothing. Mr. McDonough has done his usual yeoman's job in walking through the proofs. And we don't disagree with anything that he said.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Napolitano.
Not sure of the question for you, but what's the time frame for demolition and then construction? Looking, year, 2 years?
Typically, I can certainly say it's less than a year.
Oh, really? Okay.
Through the applicant, but later this fall.
That's what they would like to do, okay.
Yes.
Very good. Any other questions? Are there any members of the public who have any questions on this testimony at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor?
That concludes our case, Chairman.
All right. Are there any members of the public who have any questions or are opposed to this application at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Anybody in favor of this application at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor, if you wish to, any summing that you wish to?
Listen, I appreciate everyone's time and the efforts of the board professionals and so forth. We have an application before you. We think it is a good application and would respectfully ask that the board grant approval for the application as submitted with the amended variance relief and soil movement permit recommendation and other relief requested.
All right, this closes the evidentiary portion of this case at this time. Are there any members of the board that wish to discuss any items in this case at this point, or Mr. Van Aken?
Yeah, I have a statement. So, I agree with the counselor that this is a very good application. Your variances are minimum. There's definitely a respect for our ordinances here and for the zoning. However, what's happening on this property today shows a complete lack of respect for our zoning and our ordinances. And I got a little ahead of myself earlier, and I apologize for that, but this makes me angry. You have dangerous environment on that lot right now. To your own testimony, you have apartments nearby where children could be walking on here. You don't have any protection from the general public for these logs, etc., and you've been asked to remove them, and nothing has happened yet. So I'm very frustrated about the lack of respect for our zoning and ordinances here. With that said, again, I think this project is very well represented for what we're looking for, so I appreciate that. But I'm very angry about what's happening today.
I understand. I will certainly have a discussion. Candidly, I wasn't personally aware of the situation, so I apologize for that.
That's all I have to say.
Now that you've found out, I hope you move with a great deal of alacrity in resolving the issue.
I have a pickup truck out there. Start getting rolling on it. No, not to take it lightly. I understood, message is come through loud and clear.
All right. Any other members of our board have any comments or statements?
I just want to echo the one thing, because this was brought to my attention today, which I did not know with regards to the logs. Have it removed. It's that simple.
On it, Mayor.
Okay.
Very good. Any other comments or observations by members of the board?
Just a quick statement, just a little concerned that the other Taco Bell is only 3 miles away down 46. I understand it's on opposite sides of the streets, but just, concerned about loss of business down there, or, just overall general concern about that. Hopefully both stay in business and, welcome to our town, so.
Any remarks by our professionals on anything that,
I just have one comment with regard to the steep slopes. If the board is going to consider a waiver, Mr. McDonough testified under the C2 standard, which is the flexible C, that's how that would be evaluated, if that's how the board is going to go. Waiver, to me, that language is a little bit ambiguous. I think it sounds as if you can waive it in its entirety without going through the practical hardship standard, like we do design waivers. I'm not reading it as such. So just keep that in mind when you're doing the ultimate analysis with regard to the steep slopes. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
well, what would you recommend?
Mr. McDonough said it's a variance, and I believe that his...
We noticed for a variance, we'll
Right.
stand by it.
And again, it's under the C2 flexible standard. He provided justifications, provided multiple purposes of zoning, and that the detriments, the benefits substantially outweigh the detriments. So he's provided ample testimony on the record to support the C2.
So did you hear any other subject twos that we were discussing in our possible, if somebody is willing to move a resolution at this time, in favor of this application? What
Mr.
else do
Chairman,
we have? Yes, Mr. Mealy.
a motion to approve application number 22.504, Taco Bell, 285 Route 46, Block 767, Lot 3.01.
I could just read off the conditions, if I may, before the
Yes,
motion
please.
is made, before this motion is seconded. Comply with the engineering report with regard to stormwater management comments. Council, were there any comments that you objected to other than there was the one that you said didn't apply, that was a depressed curb for the refuse, but you guys were gonna work that out?
I think we're gonna, so we're gonna work with the engineer's office, on comments 4 and 5 under traffic and parking. on page 3.
Okay.
All of the stormwater management comments that are set forth on page 8. We actually didn't talk about the standard conditions, but obviously all agreed to the standard conditions. And that does include ultimately that Edwards Road right-of-way. In site plan general, which is on the first page, we are going to comply with conditions 3, 8, and 9. And with response to question 2, we are going to make note of an easement to the benefit of the DOT, but not go to the DOT to grant an easement.
Okay. There's also comments from the sewer utility. Do you have any issues with those?
Yeah, we didn't have any issue. I think we were good with any of those comments.
Mr. Weiser, you had one more comment?
Yes, I don't know whether we've resolved the issue, the recommendation from the police and fire in terms of the triangle at the entrance.
I would just say this, that's under DOT jurisdiction. This board can make a recommendation.
Fair enough.
There was testimony provided as a mountable curb. I'm not sure if our police department knew that it was going to be a mountable curb at that point. But really, that is out of the jurisdiction of this board. That is really on DOT. Did you provide a copy of your access permit, Council?
We haven't submitted, I don't know, did we submit it yet? We just got it. We just received, we haven't.
So you will
submitted
submit
it yet.
that also as a
Correct.
condition, submit the
Yep.
NJ DOT permit. We can the board can make a recommendation with regard to that mountable island, but ultimately it's under DOT jurisdiction.
Fair enough.
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I apologize to interrupt you. Comply with the requirements of the sewer utility report, comply with the comments on the engineering report, except for number 4 and 5 in the site plan. I'm sorry, in the traffic and parking, and you will comply with number 3, 8, and 9 in the site plan general.
And 8.
And 8.
Yep.
You will provide updated plans depicting the outdoor seating area. The porous payment was going to be discussed as a general condition. We allow the township engineer to make infield de minimis changes where appropriate. You will do a dedication of the right-of-way along Edwards Road and provide us with that for review. You'll comply with all the soil moving permit requirements and
Yes.
get township council approval. And that is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Mealy, you're,
with the enumeration by the board attorney as to the conditions.
including recommending that the soil moving permit be granted.
Yes.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, Nora, if you would call for the vote, please?
Barbario,
Yes.
EPiero,
Yes.
Mealy,
Yes.
Napolitano,
Yes.
Stanzio,
Yes.
Veely,
Yes.
Von Aiken,
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
And, thank you for coming and providing good testimony.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything else that needs to come before this board at this time?
No, there isn't.
Nora, do you have any?
I
You
have
don't?
nothing else.
You have nothing else. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Anybody who disagrees can spend the night.
If it disagrees, let me know what it is.
You have serious questions for that person.